think is the reason now for this debate over what is and is not an imminent threat?
Well, in part, it's because Trump raised the Iranian threat as imminent in his opening remarks after the war had started. I'm not aware of what the evidence is that would make it imminent, other than that Iran could easily buy a nuclear warhead from North Korea and have it in 72 hours. But the real point is that imminence is not required before a legitimate exercise of self-defense. And somebody who says that we have to wait until innocent American civilians are imminently threatened by nuclear holocaust, sorry about that. I don't think that's proper international law. I think we're well within both our international legal rights and just simple prudence to deal with this threat before it becomes even worse than it already is.
Right, and once it becomes imminent, it may be a little bit too late. You hope that you figure out what exactly that precise window is if you follow that logic. The larger point here is this debate about whether or not the United States was justified in attacking Iran. You've made a good point as to why. I would go a step further and say the Iranians are proving why, which is now they're trying to close the Strait of Hormuz and hold the world blackmail, essentially the Western economy blackmail. It proves what they would have done and what they could have done had they had a far vaster conventional arsenal or nuclear threshold state. Does this mean that President Trump has to go even further, not just for his stated goals, but actually to carry out regime change?
Well, I think his original stated goal was regime change. If you go back to the demonstrations in Iran in January, he was posting on social media, continue protesting, take control of your institutions, help is on its way. But it certainly proves whatever his original position was or that of his advisors, we have palpable proof right in front of us that Iran's capability to halt maritime traffic in the Gulf and through the Strait of Hormuz can have devastating effects on the world economy. Are we going to end this war with that card still in Iran's hand?
Right.
I think that's an invitation to one disaster after another.
3 weeks in, far less than the air wars of either the first or second Gulf War, there is already this sort of idea that the time's up. When are we going to wrap this thing up? Why is this taking so long? I take the opposing view. That said, there are many now who seem to think things are going pretty well, that the tide has turned. This is Victor Davis Hanson last night.
The Europeans would never agree to go anywhere near Iran unless they thought the tide was turning and they think that we're going to win. Otherwise, they would keep still. And the reason that the petronations of the Gulf survive is they have their finger in the wind and they're very attuned to the climate. And when you have Al Jazeera praising the United States bombing campaign and saying that it's been underestimated and it's brilliant and effective, you get the feeling that they think not only should the United States finish the job, but it can and will finish the job.
Are we seeing a change in the Europeans as nothing succeeds like success?
Well, it's possible. I think they're worried, and they should be, that their performance has been so inadequate that this could lead Trump to say, well, if you think that Iran is not the European Union's war, then, okay, that's fine. I don't think Ukraine is America's war. I mean, I think it's very short-sighted on the part of the Europeans, and I hope it doesn't come back to haunt the NATO alliance.
A big part of this discussion has been going after Iran's nuclear program, which the president made the point after Midnight Hammer 10 months ago that the nuclear program, or at least the 5 nuclear sites, had been, in his words, obliterated. Take a listen.
Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. As you know, their sites were obliterated. They're very evil nuclear sites. They hit the target, and the target has now been proven to be obliterated.
Is it possible that there were sites that were obliterated, but the nuclear program was not?
Well, I think overall we certainly did substantial damage to it. The one place that you might say it's obliterated, I think, is the Fordo site, which was deeply buried under a mountain. And it looks like the bunker busters really did their job. Nobody will know for sure unless somebody digs back into the center of the mountain to find out what's left, if anything. So if we can we don't necessarily need to do that. If we can keep the entrances to Fordo closed, whether it's obliterated or not, it really won't matter. They won't be able to get to it. The other sites, Esfahan, Natanz, this possible new site near Natanz called Pickaxe Mountain, I think suffered a lot of damage, but probably we could do more. We need to get that radioactive material, the enriched uranium, the centrifuges, other key elements of the program, or else ensure that nobody else can get to it, and we can watch it by air and make sure nobody else tries.
Well, how do you go get that without either U.S. or Israeli boots on the ground?
Well, I think that's a legitimate reason to put boots on the ground. You know, that phrase has gotten sort of shop-worn. I don't think anybody, certainly not Trump, is talking about a massive invasion force. We're talking about a narrowly defined mission that really goes to one of the core elements of the reason we need regime change, the nuclear program. But we also need to make sure, even if we accomplish regime change, that material and that capability doesn't fall into the wrong hands.
Well, 3 weeks in, the war continues. Ambassador Bolton, it's good talking to you, sir. Have a great weekend.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.